You're listening to the Speaking Tongues podcast. I'm your host, El Charisse. Each week, I sit down to a conversation with multilinguals where we discuss and celebrate language, life, and culture through our own perspectives. Episode 61, speaking Palestinian Arabic and German. Hello, language lovers. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Speaking Tongues, the podcast in conversation with multilinguals. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Ikhlas, a teacher and journalist who has come to join me to discuss her native Arabic dialect and the German language. In this episode, we're talking about learning languages in Palestine and hearing different languages spoken throughout a multilingual Jerusalem. We talk about Arabic words spoken throughout the Levantine dialect and how vowel usage in Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, and Palestine can change the same word throughout this region. Ikhlas tells us about Palestinian dialects from the big city to the countryside, and she even shares the unusual way that she came to learning the Polish language in school in Jerusalem. And finally, we talk about life in Germany, the German language, and how she found herself one day becoming a teacher of Arabic in Germany. We also talk about Palestinian culture and the unfortunate reality that so many Palestinians face of racism and violence in their own country toward the middle of this episode. And while we don't go into graphic detail, I do want to give a trigger warning for this conversation. Big thank you to Ikhlas for this thoughtful, thought-provoking, funny, and emotional conversation, and for sharing your journey with us. If you enjoy this episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the Speaking Tongues podcast on Apple Podcasts, or like and subscribe on YouTube so that other language lovers like ourselves can find the show. And if you've been a longtime listener of the show, or even a recent listener, you can now support the show on buymeacoffee.com. Links to all platforms are in the show notes. Okay, let's chat. Welcome back to another episode of Speaking Tongues. I am joined today. I'm here with Ikhlas. How are you today, Ikhlas?
Hi, Elle. I'm fine. How are you?
I'm wonderful, and I'm so happy to have you here. And I'm so happy that we're going to have an opportunity to have this conversation.
Yeah, me too.
I like to start each episode with the same question, and that is, what is your first language and which languages have you learned to speak?
Well, my first language is Levantine Arabic. It's the language spoken in Palestine, as I'm Palestinian. And it's also spoken in the Levant, which is Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, and Palestine. And I learned English, German, Italian, and Hebrew. Not all at once, of course, but like, one or two at a time.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. How did you come to learn those other languages? Did you hear them when you were growing up as a child, in anything that you heard
Yes.
in your home, or?
At home, we speak basically Arabic, Levantine dialect. And then when we start going to school, we start learning new languages. So English is a language that we have to learn from the first grade. We start learning the modern standard Arabic and English, both like starting from the first grade. We start learning these both languages. Afterwards, when we get into higher classes, we start learning another foreign language. In my case, I started to learn German because that's the language that my school chose to teach.
Mm.
So these were the three languages I was basically busy with while I was at school. And but later on, I had my hobby. I love Italian, so I learned Italian. I visited Italy to make a language course. Yeah, and we have a special history with languages in Palestine because we have to deal with so many people from all over the world, coming to visit the country. So we get to speak on a daily basis different languages.
Mm-hmm. That's really important. And I'm glad that you brought that up because I want to talk about the languages that one could typically hear in Palestine. And I know that it's not just Arabic, but can you tell us a bit about what other kind of languages you'd be most likely to hear in Palestine and where people are coming to visit from?
Yeah. Yes. In Palestine, it's there are so many holy places because of the Bible. So people are coming from all over the world to visit the holy sites. So you basically listen to English, German, French, Italian. There are thousands and thousands of people coming from these countries. And when you walk through the streets in the old city of Jerusalem, you see so many groups of tourists, with their tour guide, everyone speaking in his language, explaining them the holy places. And so you get used to listen to them while they are talking, and then
Wow.
you listen to the merchants while they try to sell their stuff in foreign language. Like you would listen to a Palestinian talking in perfect Italian or perfect Spanish,
Mm.
selling his stuff, and people are having fun, bargaining, trying, to push prices down to have a good price. But, it's the Orient. So you
Mhm.
know how that goes with buying, with shopping. You need to bargain a lot.
Yes, yes, yes. That's half the fun.
Yeah, that's what they say, right?
I'm terrible at it, but I've seen people do it in West Africa and it's like it's really such a skill, right? To be able to talk to people and it's fun. It's there's nothing no one's trying to take advantage of anybody, but it's a separate life skill, I think. I noticed that as you were talking and you said that your first language is Arabic and you said Levantine Arabic, which we know by now is Arabic spoken in the Levant
Mhm.
region. I would love to know of the dialects of Arabic spoken in the region, what are some similarities that Palestinian dialect shares with the Arabic spoken in Lebanon, Jordan, or in Syria?
Yeah, the dialect Levantine is a main dialect in the Arab world, and it's basically the same language that these four countries that I told you before, that are Palestine, Jordan, Syria, and Lebanon. These countries share the same language. So actually, the similarities are more than the differences. Like if we want to take the differences now, there are there are some words that would be said differently in Lebanon than in Palestine. So, for example, the word "how are you" would be short to a male, kifak. And in Lebanon or in Syria, even, they would say shlonak.
Oh,
So two different words, right? But of course, they would understand kifak, and we in Palestine would understand shlonak.
mhm.
But still, we know that these differences, right? We
Mm.
understand each other. Then one basic difference, or the basic difference between these languages is basically using the vowels.
Hmm.
So we have same words, but we would use them with different vowels, you know. So when we speak Arabic, about the Arabic language is a language with so many consonants, right?
Yeah.
We basically write consonants. But still, of course, we have the vowels that we don't write. Let me give you maybe an example to make you understand it.
Okay.
So if we want to say bread in Palestinian Arabic, we would say khubez.
Khubez.
Khubez. The Lebanese or the Syrians, they would say khibez.
Khibez.
So khubez to khibez.
Okay.
It's the consonants are the same, but they have different vowels.
Right.
Let's take the word rice, right? Rice, to eat. So rice is in Palestinian Arabic, roz.
Rose.
And in Syrian or in Lebanese Arabic, it would be riz.
Riz.
So again, we play differently with the vowels.
I see.
This is the basic difference. Like when we speak, everyone would know where I come from. They would recognize I come from Palestine, as we would recognize if somebody comes from Jordan or from Syria or from Lebanon, because our vowels in the words are different.
Right. That's interesting because I was thinking, aside from an accent or a word, like a specific word that's completely different, like how would you know if somebody were from Syria or Jordan, based on what they're saying? But if it's the vowels that indicate that, then that's the answer to my question.
Well, but you are right, Elle. Um, I said the vowels and some words, but the accent and the intonation of sentences is also a bit different from country to country, but it's still Levantine, Levantine is a huge dialect, is a huge dialect. So even within Palestine, we have different dialects.
Mm.
So we talk now about the dialects between these countries, but then let's talk just about Palestine and its dialects.
Yeah.
And it's also just, it's only Palestine, like the city of Jerusalem, the city of Nazareth, the city of Nablus or Ramallah or Bethlehem. So all these cities, they have different dialects, When I was a kid, I grew up speaking rural dialect. So rural is basically spoken in the countryside.
Right.
It's where I come from. It's, it's a little town called Zababdi, and people are just farmers. It's a countryside. People speak rural Arabic. At the age of 6, I went to school in Jerusalem. I was in a boarding school. So Jerusalem is a city. So there they speak urban Arabic.
Oh, yeah.
So you see in Palestine, we have two major differences in our dialect, which is urban Arabic and rural Arabic. So from the age of 6, I started to learn to speak urban Arabic, which I didn't want when I was a kid because I felt like I wanted to talk like my mom.
Yeah.
But then all the students in class were speaking the urban Arabic, and I had to just fit into the class, and I started automatically speaking like them.
What was that experience like coming from a rural part of Palestine and coming into a big city where I'm assuming, and you tell me if I'm right or wrong, that the Arabic spoken there could even be not just other Palestinians, but other Levantine dialects as well. Levantine, is the right word dialects? What's the right word I'm looking for?
It's a dialect. It's another dialect. It's another Levantine dialect. It was, let me tell you, I think when I think back, it was a culture shock for that age, at the age of 6 years. Uh, First of all, you start going to school. I went to a kindergarten, but just for a small time, just short time. Like I don't even remember how long I went to the kindergarten, maybe just 1 month. Or maybe I went longer, but I just don't remember. So that was hard at the beginning. But
Yeah.
I don't know how I made it, but all of a sudden I was just speaking like them. It's the way kids do it, right?
Right?
So you just
Yeah.
hear something, you just imitate. It's not a conscious decision. It just happened.
Yeah.
So to tell you about my other languages and how I came to learn them, so that was the point that I moved from the rural countryside, from the town where my family lived, to Jerusalem, big city, right? So I didn't move with my family. Instead, I was there on my own in a boarding school. My family decided to put me to the boarding school because they wanted that I have a better education.
Right. Right.
So not only a better education, but also to learn different languages. That was a major point as well. So I was in the boarding school, um, and there we had to learn to speak English. So not just changing, places and dialects like rural to urban, but all of a sudden, you are in a boarding school. We had to speak English it was a boarding school, a boarding house with nuns. So the nuns were from Poland, but they spoke with us in English. So the nuns were speaking with each other in Polish, and we girls, it was basically for girls, we used to speak with each other, of course, Arabic. And then we spoke with the nuns in English. So it was multilingual, living in a house and speaking different languages.
Wow.
So that was from the age of 6.
Yeah. Wow.
So all of a sudden, you wake up, then you are in the middle of life speaking different languages, but you don't know why. It's just like that. It's just like that. You don't think, why do I have to speak English, or why do I speak Arabic, or why do we do that? But when I grew up older, I found myself, everybody would ask me, wow, you speak so many languages. But I thought, well, isn't that normal? I mean, that's the way we live.
In Jerusalem, outside of your school, or as you moved there and you lived there, were many people speaking multiple languages that like that?
Basically, people in the old city of Jerusalem or in Jerusalem speak more than one language.
Okay.
At least two languages, like Arabic and English. And of course, merchants, you would hear merchants talking to the tourists, and then you would hear so many languages like Spanish, Italian, German. So, but of course, it's their place of working where they use these languages. But people in Palestine would basically speak Arabic and English.
So that you started on your language journey very early.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. It was basically because, not only because of of Palestine and having so many tourists, but because of the boarding school I was living in, with the nuns, European nuns. So they taught us how to speak different languages, of course. They wanted us to speak perfect English, and they were teaching us very hard, to speak it perfectly. But they were speaking Polish.
Yeah.
And like one day, I was at the age of, I think, maybe 12, 13 years. the children, the sisters, the nuns were talking to each other in Polish, and me and the other girls, we were just doing what they were talking about. And they said, oh, damn, we didn't tell them to do that, but how did they know? And we said, of course, we understood. And then she said, come here. And she was speaking to me in Polish, and I would answer, and oh my God. And, yeah, so we were speaking Polish. They didn't teach us to speak Polish, but because they said, you don't need that language. You know, Poland is a small country. You don't need to speak Polish, right? And then we were like, please teach us the language. We want to learn it very good. But, you know, it was no time to just learn and write. So it was learning through hearing. And we were you know, talking to some visitors from Poland who came over like for 1 month, not speaking any other language but Polish. So we had no problem. We were speaking Polish with them, and you know, the nuns, they were very, very astonished about this, but it's a pity we didn't have enough time, you know, to make reading, writing courses. It was just speaking.
When you started learning German later on, how much, or if at all, was Polish helpful to you when you started learning German?
When I came to Germany, I spoke better Polish than German, I must
Wow. say. Wow.
Yeah. I learned German at school. So you learn grammar, you learn to read, to write. You make basic dialogues, but like long dialogues, I was able to say them to manage better in Polish than in German. Well, it didn't help me. They're not relative languages, you know, totally different. The one is Slavic language, and the other one, Indo-Germanic language, totally different. So maybe English helped me a bit more, you know, to learn German more than Polish.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess I was thinking about the cases, because Polish has cases, right?
Yeah.
And German has cases too. Does Arabic have cases?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I did
So,
not know that. So you are already familiar with cases.
yes, I am. And you know what? The only thing in Arabic, we don't take our grammar seriously. We have the cases, believe me, Elle, in you know, daily life, we don't use them. The cases are important in modern standard Arabic. It's important when you write. It's important for a news speaker. It's important just, you know, on TV and radio, some business that needs the modern standard Arabic. Otherwise, we don't use it. So all of a sudden, to learn the cases in German, where we have to use the cases every day, it is so hard. I can tell you. And, you know, the thing is about the Arabic language, we have the cases. They give us a lot of information about the sentence, but we understand much more from the context, you know? So you need to know a lot more to understand the language, right? The sentence. So the difference is between Arabic speaker or a German speaker, or Arabic language and German language. In Arabic language, you just say the sentence. You have a subject and a verb and an object. We don't put, you know, we don't show the case in it. Just these three words, but the reader would know who is the subject and who is the object, right? Because of the context.
Right.
But in German, you can't do that. You need to show that, otherwise the German reader will not understand. Do you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. I do.
So, so it's really, that is not only my case, but many German learners have the problem with the cases. So I am a German teacher as well. So teaching these cases to foreigners, if they're not from a background that they have to use it on daily basis, like the Greek, for example,
Mm.
they find huge difficulties. Like English speakers would, wow, they go crazy with all these, with all these cases.
Um, I want to I want to get into German, but let me take a
Yeah.
step back really quickly because I want to before I switch gears, I want to ask you about some culture in Palestine. And I want to ask um, what are some things about Palestinian culture that you would want people to know, people who are not familiar with it or people who have never visited? And how does Palestinian culture stand out in the Levantine region? And what are some things that you think make Palestinian culture so special?
This is a very good question and a very tough one,
Mm,
As a Palestinian, it's we are always in the news as Palestinians. We don't have an easy history, especially what was happening recently in Gaza Strip, um, and talking about Palestine, and I am living abroad, so it's really hard. You can get emotional talking about your homeland, but I want to say that Palestinians are really people that are very kind people, full of love, no hatred in them.
mm,
And a huge amount of Palestinians are very well educated people.
mm,
In Palestine, there are so many religious groups. This is a thing that maybe no one thinks of. In Palestine, there is a majority of Muslims, but there is a good number of Christian Palestinians of different congregations.
right.
So there are also small groups of, let's say, Druze, like religious groups or ethnicity that is living within Palestine. Um, Maybe this is important for me to tell people that Palestinians are very diverse.
Mm,
Um, in religion, um, they are also very educated. They live. So many number of people are living abroad in we say in the diaspora, right?
yeah.
So, but one thing keep us all together, and this is our homeland. It's these are our roots that keep us going back to visit, but also because Palestinians are pretty religious, whether they are Muslims or Christians. So they also can go back to visit the holy places.
Mm.
So this is for me very important to tell the people.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And, I think this year has proven how important it is to understand a culture outside of what we see on the news and what we see on social media. And I like to ask this question. I like to ask this question to everyone because I as much as I talk about language on the show, culture is such a big part of language, and I don't think that the two can be separated necessarily.
Right.
And I see things and I'm very aware, being an American, I'm very aware that there are things that get shown in the news and in the media that are sometimes incorrect or not the whole story, and things get distorted. So I don't want to be a part of that. And I like to ask people what makes things special to them. And I think these conversations are important. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I think that's lovely.
Thank you. Thank you. Elle, one thing I like to add, which is about us Palestinians. Let's talk about Western media. We are always the bad guys,
Mm,
as Palestinians, and we're
yeah.
not. We're not. We are not bad guys. We don't have hate in us.
Hmm.
But it's, to be humiliated every day,
Hmm.
to keep losing land, maybe to lose the house you're living in. This hurts. You can't stand that. So fighting for your right doesn't mean you're a bad guy.
Right. Of course. Of course not.
And if we look back to history, even Germans have been fighting for their rights, whether the Scottish people have been fighting, the Indians have been fighting, everyone was fighting for his rights. And it's, we live in the 21st century, and still we are occupied, and we fight for our rights, and then we are the bad guys.
Right.
So this hurts, but this is the media. And I must say, in living in Germany, I have been traveling to many countries. So in Germany, I face two kinds of people. Some people would welcome me like, oh, that's interesting. You're a Palestinian woman. We'd like to talk to you because, we have another opinion about Palestinians in general, and then about Palestinian women. So they meet me and they see, wow, I didn't know that, that there are educated people, or that there are Christian people,
Oh my God.
or people or women not wearing a scarf.
Hmm.
And then I'm meeting German people that are, even attacking me verbally, for being Palestinian. Like, get out of the country, leave the country, leave it for the Israelis to live in peace. So I experienced that, I must say, too many times, and
I'm
it
so
this
sorry.
well, it is like that. And but I have good friends, they help, they help a lot, to feel good. And when I go abroad, people always ask me where I come from. And when I say Palestine, like, you see, it's always positive for the people to meet a person like myself, um, and talk to me.
Hmm.
It's like they have a lesson in history, or, a cultural lesson. And you know what? Even meeting Israelis is is fun for both sides of us. It's, there is no hate between the two people. Like, we could meet and we could talk and we could have so much fun together.
Yeah.
Isn't that nice? And
That's
the
what
thing
life
is,
that's what life should be, you know?
right,
I feel like I've said this before on the show, but I say it a lot in my personal life. Like, we're all human beings and we all have the same access to information in 2021 in the modern world. And we
right,
all want the same things. We all want to be loved. We all want to be safe. We all want, obviously, to be nourished with food and water, and have our basic needs met. How could you
right,
approach somebody and think that that person wants something different from you? How can you approach somebody for no reason with hate just because of where they come from? And that's just so unacceptable to me, because we I don't have words for that kind of like ignorance. It's just so disgusting.
right. But you know what? Um, I have my students in Germany, and some of them have, some difficulties because they still don't speak the language fluently. So sometimes they face like kind of, let's say, racism, or
Mm,
they feel um, unwelcome. So, I motivate them. Don't worry. You are learning the language. You have a great culture in you. And
yeah.
if a person attacks you, it's not because of you, whether because of you are blonde, or you're dark or black or white, or because of your cross, or because of your scarf. It's because of them. They have something in them, and they are just aggressive because of themselves and not because of you. You just happen maybe to give them the chance to talk to you and show it, right? So I tell them, face it, be strong. It's not because of you. It's them. They have a problem.
Yeah. I'm getting so emotional right now.
You don't worry. As long as you're a payer here, you
I
don't
just
worry.
I just hate that stuff so much. It really it really gets to me. I don't I don't I don't think anybody should have to go through that. And um that's one of the reasons why I started this show, and I wanted to have conversations with people from all over the world, because that's what I want in my life, and that's how I see myself, as just somebody who is tolerant and wants to learn more from
Yeah,
people, and not just eat the information that's being fed to me by cable news and
right.
and all these news sources. Like, I actually want to create connections with people, and I think that things like that, hopefully, is my hope and my goal, that it eliminates, or it helps to start eliminating a lot of these prejudices that people face and they don't ask for.
Yeah.
I'm a Black woman living in America, and I feel so invisible, like, all the time. And hearing other people's stories that sometimes are worse than what I've experienced personally, it breaks my heart. And I don't know. I
It does. It does. Uh, it's that is life, and it's one thing about globalization. I think that one positive thing is we got to move from our country and go all over the world, but the people are not open everywhere. Maybe they don't have the chance to just go like you did. Maybe that's why they are aggressive.
mm,
And um, if they have something against another human because of their shape, or because of whatever, because the way they put their clothes on, then it's their problem. Then I think if they're against you, you should feel like privileged. You made it to come here. Maybe they didn't see something else. That's why
yeah,
maybe they're just scared and show it that way.
right.
It's again, the problem is within them and not within the others. The
Hmm.
attacker is the weak one.
You're right. You are right, Ikhlas. And
It
this is probably like the most like emotional conversation I've had on the show, but it's
but
necessary. It's necessary.
it is, as long as you pay your taxes. It's always, I tell them.
Right? It's oh, okay. Let's let's go to German.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the German language. When you so you said when you started learning German in school, and then you eventually moved to Germany, and you didn't really have such a great grasp of the German language once you got there. What was your experience like when you first got to Germany, and and having to navigate a new life in a new language?
That was tough.
Mm.
That was so tough thinking back about these old days, when I came. And of course, I was able to make small dialogues or, speak German, but not that quick. All of a sudden everyone is speaking German, and you don't have break, just to speak few minutes and just leave and go back to the languages that you know much better.
Right.
So, I was, by the way, one of the best students in the language course. And I felt very comfortable talking with my other students that came from all over the world. We were in an international class, all learning German. So I was one of the best. But, the thing is, talking to Germans, to natives, that was the tough one because they speak so quickly.
Right.
And they have kind of attitude,
Mm.
I can't tell you exactly what it is, but that was the hard thing. And you know what? We talked a lot about the Palestinian dialects and the dialects in the Levant. So in Germany, I learned in class to speak German. We say Hochdeutsch, which is a modern standard German. Let's say standard German, right?
Yeah.
So when I went out of the class, I was trying, to buy something, whether it's the supermarket or whether I'm buying a ticket for the cinema or like for the train or something. I can't understand what people are talking. So I was like wondering, what the hell? It's kind of another language they're speaking to me. So like maybe 1 month I was talking with my teacher and I tell him, I don't understand when people talk outside. I can understand you. I can understand everybody else and what's written in the book and all my grammar exercises. But I don't understand what damn do they speak outside. And then you said, well, Ikhlas, they speak dialect. And then that was a shock for me. What? Even in Germany, there are dialects. There is a huge amount of dialects. So that was hard for me.
Mm-hmm.
But at a certain point, I managed. So I managed so that I become a teacher.
So when we're talking about Hochdeutsch and relating to that standard German and the dialects of German, would you say that it would be comparable to someone who learned MSA and then went to an Arabic speaking country where you're more likely to hear the local dialect of wherever you are?
You can compare it like that, yes.
Okay.
But modern standard Arabic and dialects are much more far from each other than German, German, modern standard German, Hochdeutsch, and dialects. They're closer,
Right.
they're closer to each other. It's just more about the pronunciation. But in modern standard Arabic and dialects, there is more of a difference.
Mm-hmm. You're saying that the difference, there's a greater difference between MSA and Arabic dialect than there is on Hochdeutsch and German dialect. So
Right.
if someone, reasonably speaking, if someone could learn German, could learn this Hochdeutsch, and they can maybe understand enough or maybe find somebody who can communicate with them in Germany, right?
Yes.
Okay.
When people learn Hochdeutsch, modern standard German, they after a while they can get used to the dialect from the area they live in, but they can also understand the other dialects. This maybe won't be the case when they understand Levantine dialect, but don't understand Gulf dialect.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I did. Well, I've told you, and I've said this on the show 1,000 times.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with Arabic. I can't wait to learn Arabic. I really want to learn Arabic. I think it's such a beautiful language.
Thank you
Um,
so much, Elle. I
and
love to hear that. I don't hear that always. Everybody would say Arabic is like a language that the sound of Arabic could be rude or not nice. So you're one of the people that encourage me about my language. Thank you.
it's so beautiful. No, I've definitely said that before here on this show, and people have said, like, similar to you, that they hear such negative things about the language. And I want to tell people, like, if you think Arabic sounds like rude or harsh, it's because you're not really listening. And it's like, just I could go on forever and ever and ever. This should just be an Arabic language podcast, I think.
Yeah, maybe. But you are right. People should listen more. And,
Mhm.
language is like a culture. You can't say it sounds rude or unpolite or something, you have to listen very well.
Mhm.
And well, I always say it depends on temperatures. It depends on, your environment. If you speak slowly or quick, or if you speak loud or, low. Um, and it's always about the speaker. The case is I teach German and Arabic. So even for Germans, Arabic might not sound like a beautiful language.
Mm.
But for the others, German doesn't sound like a beautiful language too, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
But
I've heard the same things about German. Like,
yeah, but you know what? I'm a language freak. I actually love both languages, and I love languages, I love languages and I love cultures. And in languages, you have so many information about the cultures. So I think it depends on who is speaking the language.
mm,
um there's one I don't know, it's like a video about different words in different languages, like for example the word butterfly
oh,
in English.
yes.
So butterfly and Schmetterling in German, right? So
Yeah.
they say in English you would say butterfly, and in German you would say Schmetterling. But actually, you also can say Schmetterling. Well, which is
Exactly.
also nice. And you can say
Yeah.
butterfly. So it depends.
How do you
But
say butterfly in Arabic?
Farashi,
Oh,
it's also sweet, right?
yeah. You could pretty much say anything in Arabic, and I'd say, oh, that's so sweet.
The thing about the Arabic language, it's a Semite language, and we have the Semite consonants, which
Mm,
is the ha, like in the word Habibi. Everyone knows Habibi, right?
my
Everyone
favorite.
heard that
My
Habibi. So this sound, it comes from the heart.
yeah,
Habibi means, by the way, my love, right?
it's
So
my
it
favorite.
yeah, and it comes from the heart. See, Habibi.
Yeah. Tell me, how did you start teaching German and Arabic? How did you How did you get into that? How did you decide that you wanted to teach these languages? Tell us about your business, your teaching business, and what methods you use for your students. What are your students like? How are they adults? Are they kids? And
Yeah.
tell me everything basically. But most importantly, tell us where we can find you.
Okay, I how I came to this business. I actually, after I finished my studies, I started to work in journalism. I started working in German TV, where I was doing some news, basically news. I was working so hard, but I wasn't able or not allowed to say the films that we did, because when I spoke German, you could hear my accent, right?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't, you could still, I don't want to say I'm perfect in German, but I could say I speak much better German than some Germans. But still, when I speak, I have my accent, whether it comes from, my Levantine Arabic or whatever, still I have my accent. And so my boss said, you know what, you can work here, but you will never be on TV as a German anchor woman, because uh, you still have an accent, and on the microphone everybody can hear it. And in Germany, we don't accept foreigners speaking our language. So this depressed me so much.
Yeah.
So I decided, I wanted to be successful, and I didn't want to be just in the background, right?
Right.
So I searched for something else, and I think if he talked about the language, I must find something in Arabic, but I live in Germany, right? So I found Deutsche Welle. This is the German TV abroad, right? Deutsche Welle. So I started working there in the Arabic department. And there I was, like, I did a good job. I was moderating news in Arabic language, and it was live. We were on air live.
Wow.
So I did a great job there. But then after a while, I had my kid, I had a baby, and I stopped working because, I didn't have help, with my baby. I needed to stay at home with my kid. But, after a while, I made a break of 5 years. I had two kids in this time.
Mm-hmm.
Then I thought, am I going back, to work on the radio? And it was too far from my house where I lived. So, I went into myself, and I thought, what am I doing? What shall I do? Then I don't know how it happened, and I thought I could teach, languages. And I applied for that, and I started teaching. First, I started with Arabic, and then it went to German. And there, I think I am successful, thank God. So, telling you about my students, they are adults.
Okay.
I teach in a college, or Volkshochschule in German. So basically, adults, let's say from the age of 18 and upwards. This gives me a lot of, strength and power and energy to teach, because I love teaching Germans. They're very academic and very intellectuals.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that they are learning Arabic means they are very intellectual, right?
Right.
So we have good discussions. about my culture. Sometimes we compare cultures a lot. We talk a lot. We laugh a lot. So I think, well, I can't assume 100%, but I think I offer a fun lesson. And I would say I am a good teacher. Later, my students will be hearing me. And yeah.
I'm sure they all agree that you're a wonderful teacher.
Thank you. Yeah. So this is about teaching Arabic. And then, well, I had the offer to teach German as well. And I started that too. And that was, these are also adult students, basically coming to Germany, say for work, or, following their partner who just moved to Germany for work. And, they are going the same path I went through. I just happened to, I just came before them, right? And I was much younger. So I teach them and I explain the language, I think, in a different way than a German teacher, because I learned it as well.
Right.
And I went through all these difficulties of the language. So, the tricks I used to learn the rules of the language, I teach them. I taught them these rules and they were happy, my students. So I keep that. And, it's also for me fun to see the process of learning the language. It's a thing I went through.
Right.
And the development of the students, especially the ones learning German, because, they start with me like a non-speaker. They could hardly say, hello, my Name ist. And afterwards, like after 1 year, they're making a great dialogue with me. So
Wow.
this is a lot of fun. And of course, one of the nice aspects I like is I like to explain to them in Germany, we have so many holidays. So every time when we have a holiday, I would tell them this is this kind of feast, this kind of feast. So there are so many things they don't know about the culture. So I'm a culture mediator as well.
Yeah.
And I love that,
I
would
love
tell them,
that.
like we go with the calendar, like next week there is, Halloween. Halloween is nothing special in Germany, but we got that, from they make that because they learned it from the Americans, right? So if you have kids, you can do that with the kids. They will be very happy. Or egg hunting on Easter. Let's do egg hunting. That's the way you can do it with your kids, and their kids love it,
Yeah.
You can find me on Instagram. Ikhlas Schumacher is my name. You can find me on Facebook. There you can reach me at any time.
Yeah, I will definitely add those links into the show notes for those people who are looking to get in touch with you, and maybe someone will want to learn Arabic and German and work with you.
Yeah, why not?
So you told me that you wrote a cookbook. You told me this before we started recording. And this is very slowly becoming a food podcast because I feel like that's all I talk about is food sometimes. But do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. It's you get hungry on a day so many times, so it's always good to talk about food, and I love to talk about food. I exchange, recipes with so many people, and and one of the things I do with my students, they ask me to do that with them. In our college, we have a kitchen, so they asked me if we could cook together something, sometimes Palestinian, sometimes we make it international, like everyone can show a bit of the thing. So it ends up as an event where we all like cook together, speak, and eat together, have fun together, maybe drink port wine, like if there's somebody Portuguese, or arak is our alcohol that we drink in Palestine, or different kinds of wines, vodka, and everything. Like everybody comes and put a bit of culture into our event. But now talking back about my book, my book's name is Arabesque. It's written in German.
Oh.
Yeah, it's
all for me because I can't read German.
I think I will have to make another cookbook or just translate it to English. I think that would be nice. Arabesque is a book about Levantine kitchen, or let's say Palestinian kitchen. It's in the Levant. We don't share only the language, but also the cuisine and the culture. So in my book, you can find the most popular recipes like tabbouleh, like hummus, like a Palestinian dish called makloube, and the desserts, which is, maybe you have heard of that one, knafi. Oh, I love knafi. It's a dessert based on cheese. So you can find all these recipes, and I wanted to have a book with just a simple explanation of the recipe and the working steps, and a picture, because I wanted people that read the book to have a manual. How can I reach that menu or that food?
Right.
So this is the thing the Germans were telling me. We love it because it's just straightforward to the recipe.
Yeah.
And when you finish it, like, you have a great dish for the whole family. Maybe this is a part of the Palestinian culture, that when we cook, we don't cook small amounts. I'm sorry, we cook huge amounts. So at the end, it's you have a great amount of food, and you can have some friends and that can eat with you. And you have you can make the food out of very simple ingredients.
Where is your book available for sale?
Yeah, you can buy it on Amazon. If you're in the States, or wherever you are in the world, you can buy it on Amazon. Of course, in Germany, it's in bookstores.
I will add the link. I'll find it on Amazon, and I'll add the link to your cookbook in the show notes too. Arabesque, Palestinian food, like what's not to love? What's not to love about all of that?
Yeah.
Ikhlas, this conversation has lifted my entire spirit, and I'm so thankful for having this time to chat with you. I'm glad that you were able to join me and talk so much about your languages. I like to end each episode on the same question, and that is, do you have any jokes, tongue twisters, cool slang words, idioms, words of wisdom, or words of advice in Arabic or in German to share?
Yeah, of course. But before that, Elle, thank you for having me in your podcast. Thank you so much for your interest. Of course, it's for me very, very nice and important. If you give me a voice to just speak up about my background, this makes me very happy. Thank you so much. And let's talk about the tongue twisters, right? I couldn't find one, and I know one in Arabic that was when we were kids, but I don't know if I can still say it, which is, I would say it just quickly now. احنا عندنا بقرة وعمتي بركة عندها بقرة، لما ذبحنا بقرتنا طلعت مرقة رقبة بقرتنا أطيب من مرقة رقبة بقرة عمتي بركة. Did you understand anything?
Oh my
No.
gosh, what does it mean?
It's something like, we have a cow. My aunt Barake has a cow. If we made a soup out of that, of the neck of that cow, something like that, it would be more delicious than the soup made of the neck of the cow of your aunt.
Oh my gosh.
It's also about food.
Yeah.
But maybe one famous German tongue twister, which is Fischers Fritz fischt frische Fische. Frische Fische fischt Fischers Fritz. So this is one which is very, very known for Germans.
Then, what does that one mean?
Fischers Fritz, it's the fisher is a fisherman called Fritz. He fishes fresh fish.
Oh gosh.
Again, it's something to do with food. Let's say a few words in Arabic that can help you always, wherever you go.
Okay.
Yalla, which means los, which means come on, yalla.
Yalla.
Now I start mixing up the languages. Sorry. So yalla means come on, let's do it, let's go, let's speak, let's eat. Yalla. It's basically of yeah, doesn't mean anything. It's something like oh, Allah is God, so together we make it like one word. It's yalla, which means oh God, but actually we use it to say come on, let's do something, let's just start something. Another one is inshallah. Inshallah means inshallah. You listen that everywhere if you are in the Arabic world, and the Arabic world is really huge. Inshallah means if God is willing. So Arabic people are basically religious, right? They believe in their faith and there's always God. So inshallah means if God is willing. So if you say, would you visit me tomorrow? Come for a coffee. They won't say, yes, of course, or no, thank you, I don't have time. They would tell you, inshallah. So with the answer, inshallah, you don't know, are they coming or are they not coming? Okay, so another one is to say hi. You use the word salam.
Salam.
Right, salam. Salam means peace.
I want to thank you again. And this has really been a lovely conversation. Before I let you go, do not think about it at all. Just the first thing that comes to mind in any of your languages. In this situation, after we've been talking for all this time, what would be the best way to say goodbye?
Well, ma is-salami.
Ma is-salami.
Yeah, ma is-salami. It's like go and be safe. Be safe. Or we could just easily say salam. Salam, we use it to say hi, but also to say goodbye. Salam.
Salam. Salam. Ma is-salami. Ikhlas.
Exactly. Ma is-salami. El.
Thank you again, and I will be talking to you soon.
Inshallah.
Bye.
Bye-bye.